Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really tough one, the Jeffrey Epstein case. But this isn't just about him. It's about what his story reveals about a total, catastrophic failure of the systems around us.
You know, a trauma therapist who's worked with Epstein survivors for years said this. It's how they feel every single time this story pops back into the headlines. It's like it just reopens the wounds for the people at the very heart of this.
And that really gets to the core of why this story just won't go away. It's so much bigger than the crimes of one man. It's about the complete collapse of the institutions that were supposed to stop him. So let's get into it. Let's really unpack the layers of failure that this whole thing exposed.
All right, so Section 1. The first layer here is the justice system itself. The source material paints a pretty clear picture of a system that seemed to have two completely different sets of rules, one for the powerful and connected, and another one for everybody else.
And you can just see the contrast right here. I mean, it is stark. Back in 2008, federal prosecutors had, and this is their word, truckloads of evidence. They wanted to bring 60 federal sex trafficking charges. But what did Epstein actually get? A deal that sources call absurdly sweet, knocked all the way down to just 2 state-level prostitution crimes.
The result of that sweet deal? A sentence of only 13 months. And get this, he was allowed out on work release 6 days a week. It's just unbelievable. And all this happened after a Florida state attorney named Barry Krischer initially dismissed the case, outrageously claiming there are no victims here.
So you have to wonder, how in the world does a deal like that even happen? Well, years later, the U.S. attorney who actually brokered it, Alex Acosta, offered this chilling explanation. He claimed he was told that Epstein was with intelligence and that he needed to back off. I mean, that points to some very powerful, very shadowy forces pulling strings from the very beginning.
And that leads us right into Section 2. Because this was not just a legal breakdown. The crucial point here, according to the sources, is that this was all enabled by this immense, tangled web of power and influence that operated way outside any courtroom.
Sources basically break down his shield of immunity into 4 key pillars. First, there was the money, a huge fortune, over $500 million. Second, his connections to the global elite, politicians, celebrities, royalty, you name it. Third, he built up this whole facade of legitimacy through things like science funding and philanthropy. And fourth, those alleged intelligence ties we just talked about.
And his infamous Black Book, well, that was proof of the network. It had more than 1,500 names in it. We're talking presidents and princes. This wasn't just a social web either. It was funded by really powerful backers, like the billionaire Leslie Wexner, who reportedly just gave Epstein assets like a $77 million townhouse.
This comment from Donald Trump back in 2002 really shows you something about the culture that was around him. For years, Epstein's disturbing behavior wasn't just dismissed. In some of the most powerful circles in the world, it was kind of normalized.
This is where things get even deeper, even stranger. Some sources speculate that his entire public identity, the disgraced financier, was all just a cover story. That he was a construct, maybe running some kind of secret intelligence operation. Now, it's a theory, but it's one explanation people offer for why all these major institutions seem so reluctant to go after him.
So let's shift gears now. Because behind all the power plays and the headlines, we have to talk about the most important part of this entire story, the devastating, lifelong human cost. These systems didn't just fail, they shattered real people's lives. That's how survivors put it. They said the failure of the justice system felt like being raped us again. That sense of absolute betrayal from the very institutions that are supposed to deliver justice just compounded the original trauma. It was like being violated all over again. And accusers described this incredibly methodical, predatory pattern. It was a system. First, a recruiter would find a vulnerable target, usually a young girl. Then, an invitation into this glamorous world. They'd use money, gifts, promises to build trust. And then, slowly, they'd violate boundaries, making it all seem normal. Until the abuse happened, shrouded in manipulation, shame, and complete isolation. And that trauma didn't end when the abuse did. For so many survivors, it's been a lifelong battle with crippling anxiety, depression, and addiction. And tragically, as the source material shows, some have even died by suicide.
The fallout from this case has been huge. It's triggered a crisis that goes way beyond the individuals involved.
We're talking about a massive erosion of faith in our society's most basic, fundamental institutions.
And you can see this crisis of trust playing out at the highest levels. This recent clash in the Senate is a perfect snapshot. You have Senator Booker saying, hey, let's just release the Epstein files. We need transparency. But Senator Cornyn objects. He calls it a distraction. That's the kind of political gridlock that just fuels all the accusations of a cover-up. And that suspicion is pointed everywhere. The Department of Justice is under fire for alleged cover-ups. The FBI is facing accusations of complicity. The media for suppressing early stories and focusing on the sensational stuff. And of course, the political elites, accused of protecting their own and blocking justice.
The way we even talk about this case has been so damaging. Sources point to this moment when then-President Trump referred to Virginia Giuffre by saying Epstein stole her. That kind of language, it reduces a survivor to an object, to property. It just strips away their humanity and pours salt on an open wound.
So what does all this mean? Where does it leave us? One source, Eric Weinstein, suggests this case isn't some isolated event. He thinks it's a symptom of a much larger societal shift. He calls it an undoing of the post-World War II order. That feeling of stability we all got used to, he says that's over. That stability we all took for granted, it feels like it's coming apart.
Which leaves us with a final and pretty unsettling question. This case exposed a system that protected the powerful and completely failed the vulnerable. And when that happens, when our collective trust in justice, in government, in the media, when that all erodes, what exactly is supposed to take its place?